so back. It's been a while. It's been actually a month since I've been doing anything on here, ladies and gents. First time on my own again for a while. Well, I say that. I've actually got Owen coming in very soon. Plenty to talk about in the Brighton world, put it that way. You're going to have to deal with me not having a light at the moment. I do need to get a new one. So we've got a little bit of glare from the TSR in the background, but it'll have to do. Owen, my friend, how are you?
Actually come on time for once.
I'm surprised as well, to be fair. I mean, I've just tidied myself up a little bit, had a little run down the stairs with 1 minute left, but you know what? We're here. We're back.
I got the playback note here. I had to run into my room because I was making a coffee, but we're all good.
You're all right, mate. You're audio only. You could be anywhere you wanted. But yeah, mate, how have you been? It's been, I mean, a pretty good start to the summer, I think.
I don't know when did we last speak? Who was the last signing? Was it Weaver? Was the last signing?
I think it was Minte. Minte was the last time we spoke.
So there's been like a little bit of a buffer period between the transfer. We had a really, really busy start, and then the last like 2 or so weeks have been pretty quiet. And then it feels like it's starting to pick up again with the Kadioglu rumour, which I'm sure we'll get into, among others. How are you feeling about it?
Good. I'm feeling very good, actually. Did you know what? Especially after seeing, we can start with this, the Japanese preseason tour, which, by the way, the Japanese fans have been unbelievable on Twitter. I saw you interacted with a few of them. The turnout as well, I think there was like 25,000 there in the first game. The support they showed Mitoma was brilliant. And I think just the whole thing looked great. I wish I was out there so badly, but the way it was organised, it just looked like a great tour, and it's insane, really. I don't know what you think, but we're Brighton fans seeing our own tour out in Tokyo.
Yeah, I wanted to give a little bit of a shout out because quite a few Japanese fans have DM me just about I don't know, club etiquette. Would it be respectful to wear? Someone said about an Ipswich Sarmiento shirt, just little things like that. Every single Japanese fan I've interacted with has been so nice, so respectful.
Yeah.
And what surprises me as well is they understand that sort of the club's globalization of going to other places could neglect the local fan base, and they understand the potential drawbacks of that, which I thought was quite unusual, that they would see the potential drawbacks to something that benefits them. But yeah, I haven't got a bad word to say about our Japanese fans. The club videos on YouTube have been excellent, and they really represent our club well. And it's amazing to see so many people on the other side of the world supporting little old Brighton.
As you say, it's how respectful they've been. Just online, we've had a lot of sort of influx of fans from certain players. I mean, it started with, wasn't it, Ali Reza with the Iranians, and then we had the South Africans with Percy Tau. I think the difference is with the Japanese is they've actually actively come out and gone to games. You go to the Amex any sort of time in the week if you ever had to do anything at the Amex. You go to the club shop and it's there's always people around. There's people taking photos. There's people going to get shirts. Even in the city now, there's people outside the sort of Brighton shop, which is it's mad. This Brighton didn't even used to have a shop really in the city. We had little pop-ups every now and then. There was one on the way up to the station, but it was always empty, mate. This is completely different. And they're actively actually supporting the club as well as just sort of waiting for the sort of Mitoma moments and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The South
brand
Africans
as well within the Sahi glass.
With the South Africans and the Iranians, they were, I don't want to say they were annoying, but they were annoying. It was play Percy Tau. It's he's a backup winger, mate. Come on. And it's the Japanese fans aren't even like that with Mitoma, and he's our best winger.
Yeah.
But they're Ansu Fati fans. I mean, that kind of makes sense because we were a big step down for Ansu Fati relative to his reputation. But yeah, as you say, it's amazing to see them actually supporting the club. The amount of James Milner shirts, it's I think the day Mitoma leaves, I still think we'll retain a strong fan base in Japan, partially because of things like the tour, and just it does feel like they've fallen in love with our club.
Yeah, no, I agree. And just while we're on the subject, we need to bring up some performances from these games because they were very impressive. A lot of the players are very impressive. There was a few surprises as well, Owen. I mean, obviously Sarmiento, Probably, you mentioned him first. It makes sense to kick off with him. Had that loan with Ipswich. Wasn't a regular. Had some good moments. I don't think Ipswich fans would ever look bad on Jeremy Sarmiento, apart from that good moment, obviously, with Southampton. But he was maybe on the cusp of, becoming more of a sell than a loan again. Do we give up on Sarmiento? He's quite injury prone. But you mentioned it, that he had a good Copa America. Now he's had 2 very good games, second half games in Japan. Is he making a real genuine case for himself now to stick around and contend for a starting spot even, or at least be in the first team squad?
I don't see a world where he starts for us, to be honest. But yeah, as you say, if you asked me like in May, I would have said like, yeah, he's probably one we need to sell, because his loan last season at West Brom and Ipswich was quite sort of underwhelming, disappointing. I was of like the expectation that he'd go to the Championship and be a sort of standout player in that league, and rack up a lot of goals and assists and get a lot of attention, but that just didn't pan out to be the case. As you alluded to, he had a very good Copa America, where I think the main thing that stood out to me was his work rate and sort of his intensity out of
Showed
possession.
that as well in the friendlies.
He really did, which is sort of I think that's a big reason why he could stay, because it looks like we're gonna have 2 up front with one striker dropping in.
Yeah.
He's making a case for him to be that second striker in a backup role, because if he Hurts' system is so dependent on the counter press and sort of covering lots of ground, being intense in those actions, and Sarmiento's got all of that. And he got a nice goal for himself as well.
Yeah, he did actually. Yes, two goals in 2 games for Sarmiento, as we said, the good Copa America trip, and yeah, I can see him definitely sticking around. I think I'd want to. I mean, we'll get into sort of a keep loan sell thing at the end of this episode, because I think that'd be quite a nice thing that you mentioned earlier. But another one was Yasin Ayari. Owen. I mean, I'll start with Ayari because he was quite, I'd say he was a prospect that came in. We saw it. Was it at Bournemouth at home? And they also tried that overhead kick, didn't he? Was it Bournemouth away as well? Yeah, he had a couple really good sort of first 3 or 4 games. You could see he was talented, but was maybe a little bit, I don't know, missing a little bit of physicality, perhaps maybe missing, technically not there. But I think now, he's had a loan. He went to Coventry. Wasn't particularly the best, I don't think. I think it's safe to say. I don't think Coventry fans were, completely overwhelmed with Ayari being there. But it's not always the best gauge of how good he's going to be when he comes back. And as you said, Owen, it's a different style of play now. And in the 2 second half games he had, he was probably one of the best players on the pitch in that time.
Yeah, he's another one who had a pretty poor, might be harsh, but he certainly didn't, stand out so much on loan.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a few good games. The one against Newcastle for Blackburn in the FA Cup, and then we saw glimpses of him the season before last when he was here, Grimsby in the FA Cup, and yeah, a couple Premier League ones, I think.
Yeah, he did. I remember Bournemouth away specifically because I think that was the one where Julio scored his first goal, and I think it was the one where we saw Ayari properly for the first time competitively, the Premier League, and we thought, okay, technically he's there, but is he, sort of rounded? Can he fit in tactically? I feel like I remember a stat, Owen. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but it was quite likened to Caicedo's stats. I think one of them was Mark Leonard, and another one was Yasin Ayari in terms of his overall sort of career. For that alone, you see, I saw Mike King in the chat talking about Gilmour. We'll get onto Gilmour in a second, but his overall game maybe could be one where we look to as maybe we do keep him around as well.
Yeah, you have to take them stat things with a huge, huge pinch of salt, because if you look at Ayari, I don't see any Caicedo. I think they're totally different profile. And I think that probably led to people hyping up Mark Leonard, because I think there's the honest question: how many of us watched Northampton games? I didn't watch a single one.
I'll shout out Joel here because he's a Northampton fan. He's not going to be watching it, but he told me he was the best player to ever play for Northampton, and he was 20. I think he had 2 seasons on loan there. He absolutely adores it, and I mean adores Mark Leonard. He couldn't believe that he hated the moment that he left. But yeah, we're talking about League One at the end of the day.
I was going to say it's a huge, huge step up, and he's in League One now. I know Birmingham are on a championship budget, but yeah, I never saw him, but I didn't really understand why people were hyping him up to the level there was. But yeah, as you're saying about Ayari, sort of getting back on point,
Mm.
technically he's very, very good. You know, the range of passes he had, and how he executed those passes, it certainly, you know, opens the door even more for Gilmour to leave, because I think Ayari has more physical upside than Gilmour. Not that that's too difficult, you know, with respect to Billy, but come on, like, you can't play Billy Gilmour in a counter-pressing team. He's
No.
just like a void on the pitch in that sense. You know, that's not really a fault of his own. He can't control his height or sort of his genetics, but it's football. You know, we have to do what's best for the club.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we'll get on to Gilmour though, because it seems natural. But I think, I mean, I'll start it with this. I thought where Gilmour was really good, in my opinion, was sort of that leadership quality that he had, particularly during a period with real transition. He was signed under Potter, which is what's weird. I think only a couple of weeks later, obviously Potter goes to Chelsea, where he's just come from, and then we've got a whole different system to play. It was obviously in the build up to losing the likes of Caicedo, McAllister, etc. And he was played quite blindly, wasn't he? Really, I think last season, and we relied on him. We probably shouldn't have done. I think that everyone looks back on the summer before as one word always maybe regret, but also learn from. But yeah, I think when you look at Gilmour towards the end of the season, what he was so good at was then passing, which, Mike King said that right in time with what De Zerbi wanted to play was them line breakers, and that's what Gilmour was good at. But I think in terms of overall sort of covering of the pitch, I believe you mentioned it sort of the end of last season, Owen. Not so much. And when you've got Hertzler that wants to play this really, really high intensity sort of old school German football, yeah, unfortunately, it does seem like a natural progression for him to go. But 12 million seems a bit extreme.
Yeah, there's quite a few sort of different avenues I want to go down with this. The first one is, as you say, the profile. He was here under Potter and then De Zerbi, and then Hertzler's, we're assuming, deemed him not to the standard of what he wants in his principles, which is totally fair. And I don't think anyone's going to disagree that Billy Gilmour isn't a pressing midfielder, or, I'd say that he's world class, and I sort of don't say that like he's world class in the first stage of build up. He makes all the right decisions. Every pass, it looks like it goes to his man or goes to the area he wants, and he sees the whole pitch. The problem is, outside of that, how many other Premier League qualities does he have? Tackling, not a chance. Pressing, no. Chance creation, no. He can't shoot.
Yeah.
So, outside of his passing and his decision making in that first phase, he really doesn't offer us much for a top level team. And then when you factor in, we've got Mats Riefer and Carlos Baleba. And Carlos Baleba, by the way, I know he's only played 45 minutes, but my word, was that a good 45 minutes.
He's looking at an established sort of product now, isn't he? He had that season of coming in as a, maybe a little bit naive. The naivety seems to be definitely being grown out of. But maybe there's a case there of where Gilmour could have worked. Now, and I'm really clutching at straws here to, because I don't want to discredit Billy, because I think what he did for us was good in the couple of years we had him for, and I do think he was just a nice guy. He was a genuine guy, so I don't want to disrespect him by any stretch. But I think I felt a bit bad for him in terms of what he was put up with, and that was with Potter. We had the likes of, as I said, McAllister, Caicedo, a very, very midfield dominant team. He liked to overload midfield. And that's where Billy maybe could have been a bit better with them sort of passing ability. And maybe, who knows, he could have been a little bit better going forward if he had a bit more protection around him. I do think in that second season or third season, whatever it was, that's when we sort of struggled, because then we had to rely on, as you say, quite physically inept in comparison to obviously Baleba's by far and wide more physical than him. But then you look back on the likes of Basuma, the likes of Caicedo, even McAllister to a degree was quite a underrated tackler, I guess. It's a shame, I think, but yeah, as you say, it is a natural progression. You can't just hold on to players because you like them, and it is for the best of the club. And you say about Carlos Baleba, I mean, Baleba and Weaver as a sort of double pivot next season. We haven't been able to see Weaver so far due to injury. But we have a really good team growing. And Yao Kuye, if I've said that correctly, looks even good as well. Do you know what? I saw him and I thought maybe a little bit raw and maybe a little bit, not quite. But I think, again, similar to how we had in CISO, similar to how we had Facundo, could you see Yao potentially, being within the squad to begin with, or could you see him maybe going on loan as well?
I'll get to Yao in a second. I do want to say something which will probably make you laugh. I actually really like Gilmour. Like everything I've heard about him has been positive as a character. As
he's
you
great.
said, he's got leadership qualities, well liked in the squad. He's a really great guy, and that none of what I say about his footballing ability applies to his personality. I always try and like separate the two almost. It's like certainly not a personal thing. I haven't had a single bad word from the dressing room about Billy Gilmour. But it is just a case of profile and progression, as you said. As for and also about Baleba quickly, we both said like with another proper pre-season under his belt, his technical level we think would really improve. And I think we're starting to see that, especially with his right foot passing. It's really coming along. In this last 6 or so months, he's sort of getting more comfortable and confident using his right foot. And what a player, Yao.
Yeah.
You really wouldn't think he's only played a handful of games in the Swedish league.
No, this is what I sort of wanted to allude to, because everyone said he was by far the best sort of talent out there, but there isn't a great sample size. Mate, I noticed this when I was trying to get a photo for Talk Seagulls on Instagram. Couldn't get anything beyond HD, and I think it sort of was a similar sort of thing when I was trying to find a little bit about him. But what we can say is very. You called him Baby Kante, and do you know what? I'd be inclined to agree based on what we've seen. Very all over the place in a very good way. And when you're losing someone like Gilmour, it's important to upgrade, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think he's a Gilmour replacement, so to speak. I think Reefer's probably like the Gilmour replacement.
No, I mean just in terms of midfield, like losing personnel.
Oh,
I mean, we're going to get onto Moda. We're going to get onto the likes of who could be out the door soon. But I mean, in terms of personnel in that midfield, it's essentially taken a 100% transition in the last 2 years.
Yeah, it has. I think we're in a really good place now, though, where we're getting to a good place because Diego Gomez isn't officially a Brighton player yet, but we're getting to a good place where there is sort of an internal succession plan again, because we had to go out and buy Baleba after Caicedo, which is fair enough because you're not going to have a Caicedo replacement in-house while you've got a world-class midfielder. And now obviously we've got Mats Reefer, who is, a top midfielder. Diego Gomez coming in. Yao, he didn't look out of place, and he already looked like he knew the system as well, which is what really surprised me, because with Baleba, he certainly took some time last season to understand De Zerbi's system. And, he did look a little bit out of place at times, which you'd certainly expect, but Baleba had more sort of high-level experience than Yao has, because Yao was playing in sort of native Ivory Coast. Oh, sorry, he's not from the Ivory Coast, but he was playing in there. Sort of a year ago, he came to Sweden 7 months ago, and now he's in the Premier League, and it doesn't look unnatural to him, that sort of rapid ascension.
No.
So yeah, he's really impressed me so far, and I hope to see more of him, and then maybe decide if a loan's the next step, or if he can be integrated in the first team.
I mean, looking at that first team, then we say about how we've got so many in midfield. I mean, I don't want to do the keep loan sell towards the end. I'm thinking about it. It makes more sense to do them now. I mean, say we let go of the likes of Moda, the likes of Gilmour. Who starts for you in that sort of midfield on the opening day? I mean, we've got a couple more pre-seasons to go yet, so it's not over, but we're really edging closer now to August. And by that point, you're then thinking of what the team is going to look like. I think the last sort of Villarreal will pretty much see a first team that we expect to see. Early signs based on Japan, midfield wise, who are you likening to so far?
For me, it's double pivot of Mats Reefer and Carlos Baleba, which, I mean, neither of them have played in midfield yet, but I think they are the sort of standout clear two that I'd play in the double pivot. And then I guess it depends on sort of if there's a third midfielder, which you'd put Gross into if he's still here.
Yeah.
Or if it is like a second striker, which we have used so far in pre-season. Ibrahim Osman's been remarkably impressive as well.
Yeah, he's been playing centrally, hasn't he? Interestingly, I didn't see that coming. I thought he was more of a wide player, particularly off what we watched before. We may as well start with him actually, because then we can get on to Pascal Gross. But Ibrahim Osman, along with Yankuba Minte, two very exciting players. Minte's definitely caught the eye very early on. We'll get to him. But Osman, maybe a bit of a slower first game. Second one, I think we got to see a little bit more. I think it's particularly that goal, where Minte's goal, where he sort of worked quite well with Danny Welbeck, didn't he, in the build-up, and it was a bit of a driving run forward. And he did that a couple of times in the first half. Do you see him as sort of a central based player? I mean, or would you still rather see him on the wings, despite, we do have a lot out there now?
I think that's the problem. We have too many wingers, and Osman has played centre forward for Nordsjælland, so it's not like an unnatural position for him. And if you look at his sort of physical build, he's not like a diminutive winger. He does have a good.
He's quite
good stature of his body. He can play centre forward. I do think he's going to be sort of unfairly expectation wise, because I think people put him and Minte in the same bracket when Minte has a year of Champions League, Eredivisie, playing under Arne Slot experience, which Osman's like a year behind that. So I do think people need to not have the same expectations for both of them, just to sort of get that out of the way. But yeah, Minte's been incredibly exciting so far, hasn't he? We finally have another right winger, because we miss Solly March so much, and dare I say it, could Minte be better?
Yeah, this is a big conversation in itself, to be fair. I was always going to get onto Minte, but to start off with, is he better than Solly, I think is enough to trigger half of the Brighton fan base on Twitter. I see people talking in the chat about the likes of, is it Pursuit of Truth, the Brightonian guy? He had to go at me the other day as well, about the Gilmour thing. And don't get me wrong, it is what it is. It's all fan opinions, but I think there's a select sort of part of fans, isn't there, on social media? You sort of got the ones that like to hold on to the old players, you've got the ones that have a bit of a mixture of both but sort of can see the future, and then you've got the ones that are in the now and sort of just see the good players that are now. I think the trouble is I'm sort of somewhere in between, and I like the now and I want to always focus on the now, but I think when I look back on the past, it's so hard to let go of the likes of Solly March. But then obviously he's had a very big knee injury, a very, very bad knee injury, actually. He's been out since, was it City last season? There he did it, which was, I want to say November, October last year. So that's crazy in itself. We haven't seen him kick a ball in a very long time. And we can't guarantee he's going to come back anywhere near that sort of player. Yes, Mike King, you're right. He is adaptable. He could be someone that maybe comes back and plays left back to fill in or something like that. But realistically, we've got to be honest with ourselves and say that we're signing these big players and it's probably for a reason, particularly when they're as talented and as good and as impressionable as Yankuba Minte.
Yeah, I do want to say, I do really respect Pursuit of Truth, because even if he disagrees with you, he's always respectful.
I'm not digging him out, just to clarify that.
Which, I do really appreciate, because it actually lets you have a debate, which is quite rare on Twitter sometimes. It's usually, here's my point, here's your point.
Normally just Chelsea fans, mate, to be fair.
You're not wrong. As for Solly, we all want him to come back to the player he was, but it really is a case of wait and see. Like we can't make actual judgments on who's the better player right now until we see,
for sure,
a large enough sample size of both. He could transition to wing back, as Mike has alluded to. But yeah, he's another one you just want to keep around, because even if he's, say, 70% of what he was before, that's still a good squad player.
Would you want Solly as sort of a wing back, or maybe someone that drops back a little bit? Would you be happy with that? Say he can't physically perform at the level that Solly could under De Zerbi, when he first came. Say Solly has to then admit defeat a little bit, but still be able to play a good game, but have to play right wing back when he has to, or left wing back when he has to. Would you be happy as that?
Mate, I'm just happy to see him in a Brighton shirt again, getting back on the pitch and healthy. Anything more than that is just a complete bonus for me.
Yeah, I mean, we thought career ended.
How much he loves the club and stuff. I'm always going to root for players like that who sort of, from the local area. Again, another player who sort of hasn't had a bad word said about him at all. Not that anyone does, so to speak, but people do mention Solly as like a really, really nice guy, and so on. So yeah, as long as he's back on the pitch and he can perform to a good level, I'm sure he'll be happy to play wherever for the club.
Yeah,
I don't think there's much of an ego there in terms of, I want to be the right wing or anything. He's a really team player.
For sure. Okay, we'll get on to Minte himself. You mentioned him obviously playing under Arne Slot. Tactically, he's had an extra year ahead of Ibrahim Osman, but also his first impressions at Brighton have been ridiculously impressive. The goals have been great, but it's not just that. He's very, very direct. He's very good at sort of collecting the ball and then running with it. He's also surprisingly quite strong, which I didn't expect. But he's very Fabian Hertzler, I suppose, very intense, and you need that sort of player under him, as we've always been told. But probably, I wouldn't have seen it being so impactful as he probably has been. He's really, really taken my breath away sometimes with some of the moves he's tried to do, and some of his sort of 100% energy that he comes off with. Obviously, we're using a very small sort of sample size. He can't play that intently every single game for every single minute of every game, but to be able to do it in 45 minutes in 45-degree heat, it's not too bad.
Yeah. This will wind people up, but I wonder if seeing Minte has changed their opinion on some other wingers at the club. To see
what are the wingers,
actual. Oh, if the shoe fits, the shoe fits. But it's to see an actual proper right winger who can take on his man, can score, sustainable goals, great levels of composure, quite strong in the duels, as you alluded to. It's a real breath of fresh air to see that we've got two wingers at this football club again. Mitoma on the left, Minte on the right. They're gonna wreak havoc, especially if we can get a good right back, which I'm sure we will touch on at some point. Yeah. It's really exciting, and as you say, the heat, you do really have to take it into consideration. What he does makes it even more impressive because of that 35
That's why I mentioned it. I know it sounds a bit silly, but I think it was somewhere around 40 degrees. And to be playing sort of intense football as we were, particularly first halves of each game, the intensity was so high. We really saw that from both of them. And you mentioned the Mitoma, Owen. That aura, by the way, particularly in the first game, mate, he walked out as if he was the man, and rightfully so. He's in Japan. He's literally a superhero out there. They absolutely adore him. We absolutely adore him. And the way he sort of, the confidence, the bordering arrogance, but in a really, really good way that he has. Some of the skill moves that he tried in the second game too. It's so refreshing to have him back, but to see him at that level after being out for around 3 or 4 months, he's a serious player, mate.
He's like Messi to the Japanese people. Like, they see Messi, Maradona, Neymar, the absolute greats of this sport, and Mitoma gets that similar reception. Obviously, not to say Mitoma is as good as Messi, Maradona, or Neymar, but he's got that stature. Heung-min Son in South Korea, for example. He's like the sort of the poster boy of the national team and sort of football in Japan, I suppose. And I mean, I think Tottenham were touring in Japan as well, but I didn't see 5,000 people at their sessions.
Who knew about that?
No one cares about Tottenham when Brighton are in town with Kaoru Mitoma. That's
Brighton
the level
fever
he
was
has.
across Tokyo, is what I was told. But Marshall, by the way, in the comments, I have to bring it back up. He said Adingra scored a good goal. Owen, you can't keep the agenda up for that. I want to hear what you think.
I don't have agendas. It was a nice goal. Doesn't make him better than Minte. Doesn't make him better than Mitoma. If we get £25 million offer, sell.
Would you?
I wouldn't think twice. I'd laugh. Please.
For an AFCON winner, though, I mean, it's a lot of money, 25. But is it enough?
It's a lot of money. Of course, it's enough. He's a backup winger. Respectfully, he's a backup winger. Yeah. How many backup wingers in the Premier League are worth £25 million? Especially for a team like Brighton.
But yes, I do get where you're coming from. He helped us a lot last year. It's a similar sort of situation as Solly March. I wouldn't want to discredit Adingra, but I think we may as well get onto the Adingra situation right now because obviously he was linked with Marseille, wasn't he? That didn't happen because of a very dodgy transfer that I can't bother to get into right now. But Adingra-wise, I don't see him going now, Owen. Do you?
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. There's a lot of time in the window still left. It's like another month. I would say it would have come as a surprise a couple of weeks ago to say Billy Gilmour's going to Napoli.
For sure.
I think these things can just sort of come out of the blue to an extent. Marshall said Adingra only scored once against a team that didn't get relegated last season. #noticing. I suppose
I
that's
mean,
an interesting stat if you want to read into it, but
so Adingra, you're saying sell 25. Would you take any less than that?
I'd consider 20.
You
Any
consider
lower than that,
20?
I'd probably just keep him. But
Yeah. I'm
especially
just
with,
thinking of output and what you're going to get out of him. Say he does chip in with a few goals. What's 20 million to you in terms of output? I suppose when you look at some of the players we've got for below that, it's probably quite a lot.
yeah, absolutely. And I know some people give me stick for saying, "Oh, like you're not an economist or whatever," but it is sort of a serious thing you have to consider when you sort of consider squad building and sort of just transfer strategy in general.
Hmm.
And not to mention, say we did sell him for 20, 25 million, that gives us extra leverage if and when, a big team comes and asks for, say, Carlos Baleba or,
Yeah.
Matoma, Enciso, Pedro. If we've got more money in the bank, we can say, like, we don't need your money.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned about money because we rejected around £25 million today for Deniz Undav. Depending on who you believe, I think Florian Plettenberg said that it was, I think he said 30 million euros, 30 million. Yeah, I think it
27
was
to
30
30
million
million
euros,
euros, he said.
somewhere around that. Let's call it 25 million.
Felix Arnold said 25. Naylor said 25.
Okay,
So,
we'll
yeah.
stick with 25. Undav wise, it's a lot of money to be turning down. You say you would, take 25 for Adingra. Obviously, Undav had an unbelievable season in the Bundesliga last season. I think the one thing that we did notice with Undav at Brighton was, despite him maybe not fitting in tactically, what he could do was score goals. And at the end of the day, if you score goals, you win games. Is he worth more than 25, 30 to you?
I think Stuttgart are quite desperate at this point. They've sold Giriassi. They've sold quite a few key players, so they've clearly got the money. Obviously, you don't want to spend all of that on one position, but they must have promised Sebastian Hoeneß some stuff for him to stay at Stuttgart over going to Bayern Munich. I think Chelsea had interest in him. So it does feel like they're perhaps under some pressure to get Undav in, to keep him happy. So, it's probably Tony just playing his cards and saying, like, we've got the upper hand here. We'll keep Undav. Even if he doesn't want to be here, we'll still keep him.
What's your take on that though? Because me personally, it's a difficult one because historically it was always, if they don't want to be here, let them go. I think that's maybe changed a little bit now with how transfers have become pretty much, the biggest thing in football now is how much a player can be worth, and it's basically how we've based our whole growth really as a football club. So it's changed really in terms of footballers are maybe more like assets as opposed to anything else. But Undav for 25, 30. I mean, one, I'm surprised that we didn't take it based on the situation. Two, I'm surprised also that we didn't because I'm like, well, obviously they're very desperate for him. As you say, they need a striker. We know they've got Champions League money. But at the same time, if he contributes to a few goals next season and he isn't, let's get this right. Agents in football can spin things, media can spin things to make players look a lot more upset and wanting to get out of a football club than they actually are. It's happened so many times in our situations too. I think McAllister was probably the only breath of fresh air where he actually said, "Look, I'm happy to stay here regardless. If a deal gets done, great. If not, I'll stay happy." It's not within the player's best interest to do that because they don't get as much of a bigger payout. If Undav chips in with a few goals next season, particularly with a German manager involved now, I mean, what we do know is he's clinical, as I said. You look at our striking options, Owen. I mean, we've got Ferguson, who's been pretty injured recently. I think in the last, I want to say 5 months, I'd say he's struggled with injury. Welbeck, as we know, can struggle with injury and probably can't see out every single game. Joao Pedro, of course, the obvious choice, and even still had a couple of injuries last season. And you don't want to completely just rely on one striker. And then it's Abdallah Sima who's most likely to be sold. So in that case, maybe we do need him.
I think with all the sort of transfer stuff, it is like a bit political and just a game of leverage of,
For sure.
X player wants to leave, so we're going to offer you 5 million less, or they're happy to stay, so you need to give us 5 million more. It's just a political game almost. And thank goodness our owner's a professional poker player to sort of extract the most out of all these situations.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone knows leverage, it's Tony Bloom. In fairness,
for Undav staying, it's difficult to see where he would fit in because we do have 4 strikers already: Pedro, Welbeck, Fergie, and Osman. Potentially a 5th if the Ruta stuff happens. I know he's not necessarily like an out-and-out number 9, but
let me keep you on Ruta actually, because there's been a bit of chat about him again, hasn't there? I mean, I was going to forget about it, but I saw the link. Yeah, Gruder's another one. Owen 98. You know, can you see us making another attacking signing now?
I would. My prediction, and this is just a prediction, is that it depends on Pascal Gross. Because if he goes, we definitely do need another creative outlet. Otherwise, we almost have like a Belabor and Weaver, and then 4 forwards. And there's not
losing
really anyone
Gross, you almost lose 20 goals, don't you? Really?
You do, and you miss so much of his open play, his chance creation, set pieces. I think we would need to bring someone else in. Gruder would be a good option. I don't know if you get the best out of him in the middle. I think he's more of a right winger from what I've seen, which albeit isn't that much. It's only like 2 or 3 games, but yeah, it is us being a little bit greedy if we get Gruder, because he's one of the best in Europe at his age range in his position.
Yeah, I
Especially with
heard from a
Linte.
couple that he was maybe a little bit out of our reach, but you know, who knows these days? I mean, there's no such thing as being realistic anymore. I don't think I hate that phrase of being realistic. Just see what happens. Yeah, I think I agree. Jorginho Ruta from Leeds is another one. He got mentioned again yesterday that we're going to put another bid in this week. It wasn't from the best source. I think it was that Peter O'Rourke, who can be good, can be bad. He's a bit hit and miss. But clearly, the fact that we're being linked with sort of 2 quite expensive signings, going forward, goes to show maybe that we are happy with an Undav sale somewhere down the line, or as you say, could it be something that we're looking at Pascal Gross for?
I'd say Peter O'Rourke is like the David Dornstein for EFL news. Like, he's very well tapped in at the EFL.
Oh, you're happy with that, are you? Because I remember he went through a period where he sort of lost his credibility.
Premier League,
But
he's
again,
very hit
that's
and
just what
miss.
it is.
At EFL,
Yeah,
he's very good. So I guess it depends where he's getting his information from on Ruta. If it's on the
for
Leeds
sure.
end, I have more confidence in it being accurate than the Brighton end, for example.
Well, it came from Leeds originally. I think when the PSR deadline was looming, I think the Leeds sources, sort of started the whole fact we wanted Nonto, we wanted Ruta, we wanted pretty much their whole team in the end. But
That's
the
a
fact
Graham
that we
Bailey
sort
special, isn't it?
of
Link
yeah,
5 players and hopefully one of them's right.
yeah, actually. But I do think the Ruta stuff probably does have some substance, just based on the fact it's been sort of bubbling for a good week or 2 now.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree, because it has come from like a variety of sources, which is usually a good indication that there is something behind it. There's no smoke without fire.
Of course.
I don't know how I'd feel about us getting him though, to be honest. It's a lot
Yeah,
of
he's
money for a
quite
player who doesn't score a lot of goals.
XG wise, he's not the best. I think if I read rightly, I think more likely he's going to be someone. I mean, we said before that we want to almost cover more ground now. I think João Pedro is probably one of the best examples of strikers that cover pretty much the whole pitch. God, I love João Pedro when he plays like that. But maybe it could be someone like that, as opposed to the out and out goal scorer. Because realistically, we don't actually need an out and out goal scorer, because we've got a lot of goal scorers in the team. We could just do with a few more goals. And if that's going to come from Undav, great, but he's not going to probably do sort of the overall game like a João Pedro or maybe even a Jorginho is going to do. It's up to you, really. I think. What do you think if we were to sort of make a decision here? Because I'd be happy to keep Undav, although I wouldn't mind us selling him for around. I reckon if we go 35, I reckon that's maybe when we pull the trigger and say, yeah, sure. I think when you look at anyone else, Abdallah Sima will go. We'll get onto Gross in a minute, but I feel like he might stay at this rate. I'd be happy for you to pull the trigger here and say, yeah, I'd buy Ruta, or yeah, I'd buy another striker or even a sort of winger like a Gruder. But then when you look on the wings, we're probably quite a stack there too.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? There's so many options, so many different paths you can go down. I think Ruta, it depends on what we're expecting of him. Obviously, like, the club will know him better than anyone, just in terms of profile. We aren't going to sign him and expect him to be the main striker, the main goal threat. But at what point is there not enough goal threat? Because I'd say Mitoma isn't necessarily a goal threat in terms of actually scoring goals. I know he gets like 5 or so a season, but
Yeah, he actually can be quite wasteful, to be fair, when he gets in some positions. He could have had comfortably another few goals last year, if I remember rightly.
For sure. Minte, who knows how many he could score, like maybe 10 or so. And then, if you've got one striker who doesn't score many goals, you're suddenly looking a little bit threadbare where you need to rely on, say, your wing backs or your centre backs or the central midfielders to chip in, which I suppose does play in our favour with the set pieces.
Mm.
But it just depends on what expectations you've got of Ruta and how much he would cost. Gruder, I think, is a bit of a no-brainer. It's just us being greedy, seeing a top talent potentially available.
That's how I look at it as well. It's almost a Chelsea situation. We're just going after him because he's cool, rather than because we need him.
I'm glad you brought that up because I haven't actually seen anyone say, like, for all the criticism Chelsea get for being greedy, no one said that about Brighton.
We're turning into it a little bit.
We
Yeah,
have.
Marshall shiny toy. It is. We are a little bit shiny toy at the moment. We've signed a lot of young players. If you include academy, and we've already got a great academy anyway. It did need a bit of a revamp, but even still, we have actually become a little bit greedy. We've got the likes of Kamari Doyle and sort of the likes of them lot that signed. Then you've got our next sort of level up. Then you've got the next sort of level up in the first team. Gruder would probably be the next level up again of being on the level of replacing like a Matoma in the future, say for example, or a Solly March or a Minty replay. But it is greedy. You're right.
It is greedy, but don't get me wrong. It's not a bad thing. I actually want us to be greedy. That's one of the things I do admire
It's
about
good
Chelsea.
fun to watch.
Dare I say it, I really like that they've got Strasbourg as their sister club. I'm actually very jealous of that because France is a great market. I know they're a bit financially not in a good position, but I do want us to invest in France more because the physical profiles that come out of France are superb. You've seen with Carlos Baleba and countless others. It's really not like a farmers league like sort of it gets the reputation for. It's a very good league. But yeah, it's very good that we're stockpiling talent in sort of all areas of the pitch, different profiles, because it just future proofs us a lot more.
Yeah, that's it. It's almost like an active progression plan that we're actually being able to see rather than talking about. We've physically got the assets. We don't have to worry about replacing them. I mean, like we saw maybe with the whole sort of McKenna situations we went back to last time we spoke. It was a time we got slapped in the face, and sometimes you need to be slapped in the face to learn from it a little bit. Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, another one. If you don't get the deal over the line, they're not actually waiting for us. They'll happily go and do what they need to do. And sometimes, you do need to prove yourself a bit. But yeah, we'll see. Anyway, we'll move on slightly just because we did touch on Pascal. I just want to get the genuine thoughts as to whether you think he'll stay, whether you think he'll go. It's been bubbling for a bit of time now. Obviously, Dortmund couldn't match the valuation. Not to say they can't, but they haven't done up to now. Obviously, we want him to stay, don't we? But if he doesn't stay, that's maybe when we're looking at someone to replace him again. But until then, Owen, would you rather keep him? Are you in that situation at the moment? You'd rather just have the players we need for next season?
Oh, if it's up to me, I mean, taking the personal side of it aside, I'm saying, Pascal, you can walk in a year. 8 million to us is nothing.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's more complicated than that, and you don't want to sort of disrespect a club legend. If he wants to go, I totally get it. Sport Bild reported, I think it was yesterday, 2 days ago, that there is a €2 million difference in valuations. So based on that, I can't see Dortmund walking away over 2 million. Like they make that in one match day from their fans most likely. So that'd be a difficult one to justify that they walked away from that. So I'm of the opinion that he's probably not going to be here, sadly. It really doesn't feel right that he wouldn't get a proper goodbye. Hopefully, long out the deal.
I agree. Even if he gets a testimonial or something, I know it's more for retiring players, but it just feels wrong, doesn't it? I mean, I wish I could have known this on that day where De Zerbi left when it was quite emotional. So it is. You need that. I think the likes of Chris Hughton, etc. They've gone through the similar sort of thing. They did such great things for our club, and we've actually not seen them again since. Knockout's another one. So yeah,
different for those two, isn't it? Because we knew Hughton was going to go because obviously you don't plan to sack a manager on the spot.
No, but I mean, I wish we knew before the season ended. Yeah, that's
we
what
did
I
it well
mean.
with De Zerbi, to be fair. And you can't really predict Gross going, so to speak, because it's been a possibility for years now, hasn't it? every summer it feels like it could be the one he goes.
Yeah, 2 or 3, and I think it was the Potter season where it was, we want you to stay, wasn't it? And we weren't sure if he was going to or not.
Yeah, and it kind of felt like he's settled down now. He's going to retire here, and obviously maybe that's not the case, but
yeah,
it would be nice to get a proper goodbye because he absolutely deserves that.
for sure, for sure.
Hopefully
I
we
agree.
do delay the transfer till like Villarreal. That would be an ideal situation, just so he can come on for 5 minutes and
Yeah,
get a proper goodbye.
yeah.
'Cause that's the
No,
absolute very least that man deserves.
he's top. No, we don't even need to. I don't need to go over Gross. The amount of times I've picked up Pascal Gross in my lifetime, honestly, I should be his PR, to be honest. Like the amount of things I've said, I should be being paid a full-time wage. Absolutely love him. We'll get on to a couple more sort of fringe players. I say fringe; they're not really fringe, but they look at when you look at it from a bird's eye view. But the likes of Igor, the likes of Jason Steele, also linked with links away. Start with Igor. I think it was unpopular to begin with to say that you wanted him gone or you would be happy with him going. I think now if most fans saw 25 million and knew we're going to get another centre back, I don't think many people would complain too much. But then also you wouldn't necessarily want him out at the same time.
It's like the Gilmour situation, isn't it? Everyone's surprised at first, and then when you think about it, you go, actually, yeah, selling him's not a bad idea. I know the fees are different, obviously, and I totally get why 12 million does seem like a low fee for him. But I think once you get that shock factor out of the way and you actually really think about it, you do go, actually, yeah, Brighton probably can get a better centre back than Igor. And I think that is the case. Like if the right offer comes in, thanks for your 1 year of service. Off you pop, respectfully.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, someone said we haven't been linked with any centre backs yet. I'd rather keep him if that's the case. But I mean, you don't have to be publicly linked with someone to be after somebody. I mean, the amount of times that Brighton have done it in the last 10 years where we just signed someone out of the blue. I mean, it's much harder now with the rise of social media, but I mean, there's so many times where we are talking to players all the time. We're talking to agents and clubs all the time. So I'd imagine that if we are, indirectly touting players to maybe cash in a little bit on, that we're most likely be looking for a new centre back. And I think regardless whether Igor was going to go, I think Owen would probably agree with me in that we've needed another centre back anyway. I think since Colwill went, never truly replaced him tactically. And I think if we are going to be playing 3 at the back under Hertzler next season, or at least tending to use a 3, I do think we need another centre back. Realistically, we got Dunk, we got Webster, maybe pushing it. Van Hecker's obviously going to be starting, but then that's about it, really, isn't it? I mean, in terms of technical centre backs and players that are going to be similar to like a Van Hecker, quite progressive, or like a Colwill, who is obviously very good for us. We're pretty limited there.
We probably need 2 centre backs. If it's a 3 at the back, I think we need 2. Because I mean, you can play Dunk on the left side, but I think if Igor goes, we'd only have 4 centre backs. I think Dunk, Webster, Van Hecker, Veltman.
Yeah,
and even Veltman's like a little bit of a question mark on whether you want to actually play him at centre back or not. So you probably do need 2. Certainly a left footer if Igor goes. Who that would be, off the top of my head, I don't know. There's a really good one at Salzburg. He's only recently joined there, so he wouldn't come here. But Henry Blank, I DM'd Marshall about him the other day. Very, very impressive.
For sure. Okay. In terms of, I don't mind so much about getting sort of an answer on who replaced. I'm sort of doing it more like a keep, loan, sell. I'll go over every name that we've mentioned in a minute and say you've got to do a very blunt, I mean, the chat can get involved as well, very blunt keep, loan, sell of all the players we mentioned so far. We'll get Steele now. And I don't think by any means we should be selling Steele personally. I think I really like him as a club man. I really like him to stick around. He's very handy. I mean, I'm not saying he's particularly the man to start, as we all know. A couple of dodgy ones, wasn't there, in the Japan tour? But let's be honest, he's been great, really. If you can look at it from a bold perspective, he's been good, and he's been very good with his feet. However, next season, Owen, what are we saying in goal?
I was going to say, you said he's great, and I frowned at that. I was like, has he been great? But yeah, no, you're right. Off the
What do you mean? I thought you were just a publicist opinion at AVI. I didn't know you had to frown on
it. I'd keep him as the second choice. I suppose we're sort of rushing ahead, but it'll make more sense of why I'd keep him at second choice when we get to other players. I don't want him to play besides cup games. His shot stopping isn't near the level it needs to be to sort of start for Brighton. I don't know how De Zerbi didn't see that, but yeah, he certainly had a very good career resurgence here. I don't think there's any point of getting rid of him because he's a sort of good experienced goalkeeper. He'll support the other senior goalies well. And he is sort of almost like another coach almost at times.
Yeah, definitely. He's the experienced head, and I think we should always be thankful for that end of 2023 season. I think is the one where it's up there with the promotion year for me, with how it was almost like the same sort of magic in the air. It was mad, and still was a massive part of that with how we played. The sort of goalkeeper using their feet thing. We just got rid of Robert Sanchez, so we're going through a bit of a period. We didn't really know who was going to be in goal. And at that moment, still wasn't too bad shot stopping wise. But then, yeah, it's definitely he's maybe taken a bit of a decline in that sense. But I definitely would say keep him around, keep him as sort of like a club hero, and be remembered for the good moments rather than the bad. And as you said, he's had a bit of a resurgence, not just as a player, but sort of mentally. I don't know if you saw his interview with him sort of last year. It was so good to watch. He went through a really bad time and was really struggling at Sunderland, and he had his own fans sort of booing him. And versus now, I mean, look, okay, don't get me wrong, he gets pelters on Twitter, but Twitter's not real life, is it? And the majority of Brighton fans has given him a very good reception when he's played. So, yeah, love still, keep him around, but don't obviously start him. But it leads me on quite nicely to this guy who we haven't seen yet, which is really starting to confuse me a little bit, whether he actually is injured or and I saw he sort of tweeted saying, is he just, are we waiting to cash in on him? Are we sure what's going to happen with Carl Rushworth's future? I mean, I thought this was going to be his moment. But obviously the injury, if it is an injury, has hampered that. But going into the end of pre-season, the beginning of the season, we still got an injured Bart Verbruggen, Owen. And so Rushworth could still be number one until that point.
Yeah, I'd keep until Verbruggen is back. So that would be like game week 2 or so. So essentially, I'd loan him out like as late as possible. In an ideal world, that might not be realistic because obviously, what team has a first choice goalkeeper vacancy that late in the transfer window? But that's what I would do ideally. Maybe Southampton, they need the goalkeeper still. And worst case scenario, you do loan him out earlier just so he does get that loan. Other than keep him to sit on the bench for most of the year.
Yeah,
so yeah, I'd loan him out.
I'm glad you said about being on the bench for the rest of the year, because we're not going to. Well, I could be wrong. I'm massively wrong. In which case, Fabian, I'm very sorry, but I can't see him rotating goalkeepers like De Zerbi did last season. It's not going to be a situation where you've got a different goalkeeper every other week, and I think that will probably stay pretty similar. De Zerbi was obviously quite out there, wasn't he, with some of his tactics, whereas I think Hertzler cares quite a lot about his defence and organisation and sort of as a unit of a squad. So I'd be very surprised if that happens again. But in the situation of where we're at the minute, we actually don't know if I'm right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't actually know what Verbruggen's injury is at the moment, do we?
I don't think it was specified, but we've given a time frame of 6 to 8 weeks, I think.
Yeah, 6 weeks could be.
And that was about a week ago.
So we're pushing ourselves a little bit there because obviously it's different Brighton now. We've got a very different medical team. We've gone through a lot of transition. But if he's going to be okay going into the season, then fair enough. If not, we don't know if he is. Then that puts us in a bit of a difficult situation with Rushworth. As you said, I do agree with what you say in terms of wanting to keep hold of him until you can loan him at the latest possible period. But then, as you say, how realistic could that be? I'll be inclined to say, look, based on our past history, you've got to make a decision. You've got to say yeah and risk the situation of being sat on the bench, or have a go. And what if he is very, very good for us? And you can't just take him out of the team as soon as Verbruggen's back. So there's a reason to fight for your place, I suppose.
Yeah, it's certainly a tricky one. As you say, you really don't want to do goalkeeper rotation. It's better to have a sort of stable defensive unit. It's just what's the trade-off, because I don't think a year sitting on the bench for Carl is going to do him any good compared to actually playing experience. And let's say worst case scenario, and this isn't even like that bad of a case, but Rushworth goes out on loan and Verbrugge isn't back until September, for example. Jason Steele is fine to like hold the line until then. You know, it's not like we're playing a Conference League goalkeeper or something. You know, Jason Steele is capable of sort of being fine in that role. Yeah, now, you know, he's not going to be of the level of Verbrugge, as we saw last season, especially at the back end of it. But you know, as a worst case scenario, it's fine. You know, we'll survive, and then I don't know who you put on the bench, maybe like Killian Cahill or just any of the 21s goalies. But I think that case would be fine. I don't think it's worth stagnating Cole's career by a year.
Yeah.
Just for like 3 Premier League games.
No, I can sort of get what you mean. I think that the trouble is that I'm facing is how long's Verbrugge going to be out for? Because how many times we had them sort of 6-week injuries, and then it's another month, or then it's, you know, a couple more weeks. Hopefully it is a case of, you know, because we have got a very different sort of medical setup now. It is 6 weeks and it could be ready in 5 weeks. But we'll see. The final one's Facundo, Owen, which I didn't actually think we'd be having this conversation. I've got to be honest. I mean,
I thought it was going through the positions. That caught me by surprise.
No, I'm going to get back onto each player again. I'll go through, like, as I say, I'll rush through everyone and make it worth it. Oh, that was a good one, that. But yeah, Buonanotte, I didn't see that happening in terms of being linked with a loan option to buy. I wouldn't let him go. Put it that way. I wouldn't want him to be sold. I think he's a very talented player. I think he can be naive, but we see very good glimpses of him. We saw it in the Japanese games, particularly that driving run that set up Sarmiento's goal. He had a couple of them actually in that second game, similarly in the first. But also Facundo, as we know, he's had some good moments for us. Obviously, the long-range goal was it against Sheffield United, I want to say. And the other one as well against Crystal Palace, of course. Great moment. So he's capable. He's very young. I wouldn't be opposed to him getting some sort of first team starting experience in terms of being a consistent figure in a good team. Feyenoord are obviously going through a big period of transition as well. So whether that would be the right move, I'm not so sure. But with an option to buy Owen, I think it's too far.
I really don't want to sell him, but I really want to loan him. I think I'd rather keep him than sell him. But I do think he's at a stage of his career where he needs minutes, like 2,000 plus minutes, which we can't really offer with our depth now. He would just be like a backup player. And I don't think that's the best for him in his career. And Feyenoord are like very well known for developing great players. We've seen Mats Riefer and Minte coming from there sort of very recently. With the project Arnold Slot had, obviously they've got a new manager now. And as Mike said, they got absolutely cooked yesterday. They really need
I saw that. Was it 4-0?
Yeah, they just got played off the park. I think they've got a lot of injuries and haven't got their Riefer replacement yet. But yeah, they looked nothing like they did last season. They're playing their right back, Geertruida, as central midfielder, which
we know how that feels. We're with them. We get it. But in terms of him, for Facundo, Owen, I mean, give us your thoughts on sort of as a talent. You know, I remember when he first came over, he was likened to Messi, wasn't he, by Carlos Tevez in that sort of famous quote. Obviously, Messi's a bit of a reach, but you can sort of see where he's coming from with them sort of little darting runs. He's quite narrow, isn't he? He can get in small gaps and carry the ball with him.
It's not the only famous quote Facundo's had, has it?
It's
one when he came to Brighton.
God's sake, yeah, that one too.
But yeah, someone asked me the other day, and it really made me think about who will have the bigger career, Facundo or Enciso? And I came to the conclusion it's going to be Facundo.
See, it's a big one because at the moment it's so easy to say Enciso. I'm actually sort of glad you mentioned him, you know, because we didn't really touch on Paraguay. Obviously playing with the captain, which is Diego Gomez as well. He's Brighton bound very soon. Enciso is great, good to watch. Still got his sort of Julio moments, and by Julio moments I mean selfishness to a whole extreme. I mean, he literally will do anything for a wonder goal, that boy, which is great to watch sometimes. Sometimes you almost wish him to play a little bit with the team, but no, he's 11 shots in the game. That's crazy. He's mad. But I don't know, you know. I can see where you're coming from with Facundo, because he's coming very, very early into his career here, and he was not ready when he first came in. Whereas in Ciso, sort of, I think we were going to loan him. We were going to loan Facundo, but we were definitely going to loan in Ciso. And then he sort of, he broke in quite quickly, didn't he? He scored that great goal, as we all know about. And in his sort of overall game, he become a bit of an established forward for us, didn't he? I could be inclined to say Facundo, but at the moment, it's got to be in Ciso for where he's at the moment. But he is about 2 years ahead, I want to say.
Yeah. Right now, Ciso's the better player, of course, but I think by the time they retire, I can see Facundo having the better career.
For sure.
Partially because I can see Enciso being one prone to a Saudi move. I don't know about you, but just from
I get what you mean. He's got that sort of, he's quite erratic. He's quite selfish. He's probably he'd take the money. I can see him. I can see him sort of going at first option. To be honest, as much as I love him, he loves. I feel like he wouldn't be shy of the money, and I don't blame him to an extent. Like I just think he would just do it. I don't think he'd think about where he's going. I think he would just go for it.
Yeah, I agree with that. But getting back to Facundo, which is what the actual question was.
To be fair, it's good because it gives us an opportunity to touch on Paraguay as well. Because I wanted to get your thoughts on Diego Gomez, and eventually they're all South American, so it all sort of comes together in a beautiful way.
Yeah, fair. Diego Gomez, sort of box to box, has a nice final pass on him. Again, haven't watched a whole lot. A lot of the stuff I did watch was when he was back in Paraguay, which is when we were first linked with him. I don't know if
he
you
looked quite good. Libertad, wasn't it?
Yeah, same club as
he looked quite good yesterday or day before when he was playing for Paraguay in the Olympics. Turns out he's the captain, which was quite something. But also his crossing ability was very good to watch. He got that assist in the last minute.
I'm going to name out some of them like attributes you said, and tell me what Brighton midfielder reminds you of. Can cover a lot of ground, very good at passing, and can cross the ball quite well and create chances.
Sounds like very Pascal to me.
It does. That's what I'm thinking. Like, okay, he might be the replacement that we go for. Whether he comes in day one or does go back online to Inter, it's not really been reported.
I wonder if he was sort of a distant Dewsbury Hall replacement, a backup to Dewsbury Hall, if you like, because he's quite similar in terms of everything. I think if I read rightly, I think Roberto Royas told me as well that he's very, quite underrated maybe in his defensive part of play. He can sort of, there you go, right on cue, eight tackles and 5 interceptions. He's quite good defensively, which is quite good to listen to, as a number 8, that's what you want. Temper expectations on Gomez's passing is always consistent, but and again, you're not expecting a complete 100% consistent player to come over from Paraguay or into Miami. To answer your question, Owen, I think Sky said it earlier. I want to say that we're likely to loan him out until the end of the MLS season, which will be December.
You've beat me to it, and I'm the guy meant to repost news.
There you go.
I hadn't seen that yet. Fair play. I'll get that reposted at some point. Obviously we have tempered expectations. We aren't expecting him to be as good as Gross. It's just a similar profile and can do some of the similar things. Obviously that they're at two completely different stages of their career. As you say, the defensive work is also like a big plus. 8 tackles, 5 interceptions is crazy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's quite underrated, I think.
I'm pretty sure he's got really good duel winning numbers as well, off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure he does win a lot of ground duels, which is, I think that's a big emphasis on our summer recruitment. I think all of our players can win the ground duels. The slight exception to that might be Alexander Barr. His numbers are good, but I don't know, from watching, I don't know, he's an interesting player. I'll be writing something in a lot of detail, as you've seen.
Yeah, I've heard about this. In fact, you know what? Let's touch on not just Barr, but also Kadioglu while we're on the subject of potential incomings. Kadioglu, I admittedly know more about than Barr. I've got to be honest. You're probably the man to talk about Barr, but Kadioglu's positional play is insane, mate. He's played, I think, everywhere apart from in goal. And you know what? I've seen Duncan goal twice, so I'm not going to put it past him. But he looks very impressive in terms of purely statistically, and obviously he was good in the Euros. But someone that would definitely be able to cover a lot of ground for us. based on the past Brighton, which is not so past really with Potter and De Zerbi, but also the future Brighton with Fabian Hertzler, versatile players is essentially our bread and butter, isn't it? And not really pinning them down to one situation. You can see him at left back, you can see him at right back, but you can also see him in midfield, up and down the midfield, on the wings, I think I read, and he's played as a second striker, believe it or not. So yeah, Kadioglu looks good, put it that way.
He can do it all. Superb physical profile, so powerful, got a good amount of pace behind him as well, which does open up them opportunities to maybe play him in midfield if need be.
Yeah.
It's interesting how that's the way our recruitment is going now, is more on physical profiling rather than, small, sort of weak technical players. I know there's been an exception of that with Barco, but sort of just generally speaking, it is becoming.
I love Barco. I really do.
Yeah, very good player. He's a special talent. I don't know. There's some question marks defensively, sort of when he's not involved, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah, I thought he was all right the other day, but obviously it was against lesser opposition. But I did quite fancy him the other day.
But yeah, Ferdi Kadioglu would be another incredible signing. I feel like I'm saying that about all our players that we're signing, but I'm really liking how we're planning it and who we're getting. It's like another player who we shouldn't be able to get, but if we can, another incredible signing.
You asked me who I'd rather have between Kadioglu and between Bar. As I said to you, I'm not the most knowledgeable on Bar at all. He had some quite impressive stats from when I read about him. Fed has already said, Fed Hove Albion has already said Kadioglu very quickly. So I'm going to fire the question back at you as somebody that's done more research on Bar than I have. Fabio Kadioglu, him or Bar?
Kadioglu, and I'm not really thinking twice about it. I do think he's I don't want to say significantly, but there is quite a gap between their abilities. That being said, this isn't like an Igor situation where the Colwill to Igor drop off is so huge. Like, Bar would still be very good. As Casavida has said, there is injury concerns with Bar.
I read this yesterday. He's missed a lot.
He reminds me a little bit of Cucurella, a little bit.
Interesting. It depends on how you mean about Cucurella, because there's a lot of opinions that I have on Cucurella, depending on what you ask me.
Sort of technical wise, he really favours short passes. He's not really an overlapping wing back, so to speak. He underlaps a lot. He's very quick, a lot quicker than Cucurella was. But like his crossing, he sort of favours low crosses or sort of medium height crosses rather than like Barco where he sort of whips it in. It's just a completely different technique. He doesn't really look comfortable doing that or sort of running with the ball. He does take quite a lot of touches when he does have the ball at his feet. A reference like Igor does, where he picks it up and takes it.
I get what you mean. You've sort of put me off him now, to be honest. Yeah, I've not done enough research, but I feel like I've sort of had a lot of questions answered for me.
I'll go on to some of his really good stuff then. Aerially, he's an absolute joke. I think from the 4.5 games I've watched so far, I think I've watched him lose 2 aerial duels and win about 25 of them. To the point where even like their goal kicks are sort of aimed towards him just because he always wins the ball.
I mean, fair enough. But I mean, we're not going to be doing that. We're not. I mean,
we could. To be fair, I can see Fabian switching it up.
Actually, you say that.
It does get too predictable if you go short every time.
The second game, we weren't only playing out from the back, were we? I think we were a little bit more direct. I'd say there's a couple more sort of wishes to sort of counter attack, which we haven't. I don't think since Houghton we've counter attacked anyone. I don't really recall many, if any. In my time as a Brighton fan, which is the last 15 years of us actually being a good, scary counter-attacking team. So much of the fact, the first one that comes to mind, Owen, and you're going to remember this, I reckon, was Norwich at home when I want to say it was Bong and Scalak across for Lewis Dunk or Glenn Murray. That's
5-0.
Yeah, the 5-0. I want to say that's probably it came from an Alex Pritchard free kick, which is even better. But I feel like that was the last counter-attack, which is, we've had a whole Premier League era since then that comes to my head quickly of proper counter-attacks. If you were to give me a counter-attacking example of Liverpool 2018 or Leicester 2016, that's probably the only time that I can remember us doing something anywhere near as successful. Do you reckon Hertzler could bring that? Because I love a counter attack. I've got to be honest, it's the old school way of football. We don't see them anymore.
We counter attacked quite a bit in the Prem, didn't we? Because we had Izquierdo. He was a good transition threat that we.
Yeah, we had first season, but that was the only way we could score. So much the fact that it actually just made it not very fun. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. In terms of variety, we definitely didn't have it. And then Potter, we couldn't counter attack because our wingers were Trossard and Aaron Moy or Pascal Gross. Like that was
Yeah.
And then we thought Lamptey was the best player in the world because he's the only player who could run faster than 10 miles an hour.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I think we could definitely see some counter attack sort of style of play under Hertzler. I do think he will switch it up because De Zerbi was live and die by sort of his passing build-up patterns, and if you go into a mid-block, we've got no solution unless Mitoma's on the pitch because he can actually break down.
Yeah, we had nothing to break anyone down. I'd like to hope that changes next season. I mean, even based on the early signs of our set pieces, that's something to sort of build on. Please just stop conceding so many stupid goals. Honestly, the end of last season, the amount of so stupid goals that we conceded particularly, that's probably one of the biggest things we need to solve. And if we can sort of nick a couple of set piece goals, even if it's 5 next season, it's a way we're going to beat 5 different teams that we wouldn't have done in the last 5 years. Anyway, Owen, I think in terms of talking points, we're nearly there. I'm just going to go back over the players if you haven't got anything else.
I think I'm all good. I did have something, but I've kind of lost what it was.
Yeah.
So if it comes back to me, I'll say.
Yeah, for sure. All right, chat can get involved. We're going to go through every player that we mentioned so far, and I'm going to do a keep, loan, sell. I want to know what you think. And there's no what ifs, but this and this. I'll give an answer as well, and just go through and saying that be ruthless, keep, loan, sell. All right. So first one's Deniz Undav, keep, loan, sell. Owen.
Sell.
Sell. Chat saying sell. Oh, Seagulls FPL.
We're going no reasoning, just.
Do you know what?
Okay.
Just sell. Yeah, I'm saying 30 million he's sold. 35 million he's sold. Yeah, chat saying sold. Yeah, he's gone. It's a goner. Owen, you agreeing? 35?
Yep, sell. I'll sell for 30.
Fair enough. Okay, Sarmiento. Changed a bit now, isn't it? I'm going keep.
Yeah.
Mike's gone loan. Few gone loan. Most gone keep. Loan again. See, I don't see Sarmiento going on loan again. I think it's a sell or a keep thing now with him.
I agree. I don't think a loan does him anything.
No, we might as well. If we're going to get rid of Sarmiento, I reckon we sell him. All right, Moda.
Sell.
That was one of the quickest.
Sell.
Oh, look at the chat. Oh my gosh. Right, yeah, fair enough. I'm with you. Marshall said keep, and do you know what?
I'm banning.
Do you know what? He's getting promoted to a mod. That's class. The next one you're going to love as well is Adingra.
Sell.
Keep. Loan. Ned's gone loan.
What's the point of loaning him?
That's wild. I'd love to see Ned back himself in the chat now as to why he said loan. Most gone keep as well. That's actually quite interesting. He's only 22. To be fair, you forget that he's a year younger than I am, which is kind of scary. I would sell him and keep him. I don't know. I think I'd keep Adingra for now. See what happens.
God, you coward.
Gilmour. Owen. Sell. I think everyone's sort of wrapped their head around the fact it's going to happen. Got to keep in there from Cody. Sell. Oh, loan. What's Marshall cooking?
Marshall's just being a hipster.
There's being a hipster, then there's just liquidating your club. Pascal Gross. Keep,
but I don't think we're going to have much choice. But it's up to me, keep.
Yeah, for sure. Up to him.
If
this is the thing. Yeah, okay. Well, I'll go. I'll say keep for Pascal. I think I've wrapped my head around the fact that the Gilmour's gone anyway. Loan again. Igor, I'd sell. Definite. Igor, I'd definitely sell because I feel like we're cooking something at centre back. That's just gut feeling. I don't know anything. I feel like we're gonna get a good centre back. That's just my personal opinions. Still, I'd keep.
Keep, yeah.
Owen,
is my mic gone?
No, you're in. You're good.
Yeah, I'll keep.
Mike's gone keep. Not going to get a better backup than Igor. I disagree. I think we've already got a better backup than Igor, and that's Webster.
I think it's difficult to find a centre back as good as Igor.
I think actually Webster's probably one of the most underrated backups in terms of, we don't exactly. You're not going to go out and try to find a fourth choice, are you? And third choice. I think in terms of that, Webster's great for that. Do you agree?
Yeah, and he's homegrown, which is obviously
For sure.
a big plus point when we're running a little bit low in those numbers.
Sure. All right, Rushworth. That's an interesting
Loan.
one. This. See, I'm going to say keep and go against you. I'm going to say keep on the basis of I don't actually know what's going on with Verbruggen right now. Marshall's going to sell. This kid.
He needs to be banned. Someone needs to stop him.
He spelt Marshall wrong as well. It's got one L. Bonanotte. This is a big one. For me, it's loan.
Yeah, I'm in the loan camp.
Yeah, for sure.
But don't dare sell him.
Yeah. We'll do a bonus one. Because everyone's gone loan. It's too boring. We'll go Ayari because this is interesting. I actually would keep Ayari based on what we've seen so far.
I think loan, but I don't want to make a decision. We haven't seen enough.
Oh, you've got to make a decision.
I've
just
said
said decision.
Loan.
You're saying loan for Ayari again?
Yeah.
I mean, the only base of loan for Ayari would probably be a top-end championship team. But yeah, he has been good in preseason. Tom. So I have look of him. Moran, actually, good one. Ned, fair play. I'll keep it alive for Moran. Moran, I'm gonna. Yeah, I think I was gonna say loan. Maybe at a better team. Was it Blackburn last year?
Yeah, I think he needs. I don't think Championship's the best spot for him. Ideally, loan him somewhere foreign.
Yeah, he's technically good. I don't know if he's a little bit lightweight. We sort of saw him at right back, didn't we? Last game. Okay, I think we're there. I'm not selling Lamptey.
I've got one for you.
Okay.
Ibrahim Osman. I feel like that will get a couple of different ones.
What, in terms of keep, loan, sell?
Or keep or loan, pretty much.
Keep.
I'll keep him. I'll wait for some more responses. Mario Cozier Dubry.
Oh, good shout, actually. I didn't think about Amario, but based on what I saw first game, I was going to say keep, but then second, maybe a little bit less effective. But I'm still going to say keep. Keep until Jan. That's a good shout.
Yeah, keep until Jan, then loan him if Solly's back.
Yeah, if Undav stays. And to be fair, I think Amario is one of them where I think if he went on a bit of a sell for pure profit, I just need to stop this guy. I think if Amario is going to be one of them players, I feel like it's him. You know what I mean? The breakouts that you don't expect. He gives me sort of, when we first signed Tarek vibes. We don't quite know what to get from a academy player from a Big Six team, but I think we've seen already a small glimpse of half the talent he could give us.
My favourite thing about him is whenever he picks up the ball, he doesn't think about what he's going to do. He just starts doing it.
Yeah,
which is really underrated.
That cutting on the left is brilliant as well.
They get the ball and they think, "Oh, where do I go? Do I go inside? Do I go outside?" And then the defence is recovered and there's no space.
Yeah, completely agree. Right, I think we're there. We're there.
There's one little player I want to give a little shout out to. Just like a surprise pre-season. Jensen Weir's been surprisingly good at centre back.
Yeah, he has actually. I'm glad you said Weir. I actually forgot about him.
I'm just looking through our foot mob.
Yeah, he has been quite good. Would you keep loan and sell? I'm going to say loan, obviously, but I think he's 23 now.
He's 22 until January, pretty much February.
Right, but he's 22, so he's 23.
He didn't have a great loan in League One. So you're probably looking at sell, but he's going to get a count of himself at centre back, considering he's a central midfielder. For sure. Right, there's some credit there.
Chat, thank you for commenting. Owen, thank you for being here. It's been good fun. It's good to be back, of course. Owen, obviously you know where to find him. You probably will follow him already. We'll be back doing these regularly, particularly for the new season. You'll be seeing me only on Talk Seagulls this season. Thank you very much for joining me, Owen, as I said.
Oh, actually, wait, hang on. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Is there anything to talk about?
Talk about what, mate?
No? Okay, fair enough.
No, I want to Talk Seagulls. I'm doing me. We'll speak soon. And yeah, thank you all for joining.
Thank you for having me on. Always a pleasure, good fun. And thank you for everyone for interacting in the chat.
Love that. Bye, boys. See you later.